Ethan Caldwell hadn't cried in 2 years. Not when Clara vanished. Not when the silence ate him alive. Not once. But when his 6-year-old son leaned forward in the saddle and whispered, "Papa, I know her." Ethan's chest cracked open like dry earth. Because the woman standing barefoot in the middle of the Buckhorn Trail, bleeding, sunburned, wearing a torn wedding dress, was the same woman who disappeared from his life without a single word. And behind her, on the horizon, a rider was coming fast. If you want to hear what happened next, subscribe to my channel, follow this story to the very end, and comment the city you're watching from, so I can see just how far this story has traveled. The horse stopped first. Ethan didn't pull the reins, didn't signal. The animal just locked its legs and refused to move, ears flat, nostrils wide. "Easy, boy." He tightened his grip. The heat was brutal. Worst summer Kansas had seen in years. Air thick enough to chew. Dust swirling low across the Buckhorn Trail like something alive. Samuel sat behind him, arms wrapped around Ethan's waist, chin resting against his back. "Papa, why'd we stop?" Ethan squinted. Something ahead, middle of the trail, a shape. Not a coyote, not a drifter. A woman, barefoot, in white. "Stay on the horse, Samuel." "But Papa—" "I said stay." Ethan swung down. His boots hit the cracked earth hard. He walked forward slow, hand resting near his belt, not on the pistol, but close enough. The woman wasn't moving right. Her steps were crooked, like her legs had forgotten how knees worked. Blood marked the dust behind her. Her dress, what was left of it, was torn from the hem to the knee. A veil dragged behind her, brown with dirt. She was maybe 30 paces out when she stopped, swayed, and dropped. "Papa, she fell down!" Ethan broke into a run. He reached her in seconds, sliding to his knees beside her, rolled her over gentle. Her face was burned red from the sun, lips split, eyes closed. Pulse. He pressed 2 fingers to her throat. Faint, but there. Ma'am, can you hear me?" Nothing. He pulled his canteen, tilted water against her lips. Most of it ran down her chin. He tried again. This time, she swallowed. Behind him, hooves. Samuel had brought the horse closer, disobeying like he always did. "Papa, is she dead?" "No, she ain't dead, but she's close to it." He lifted her. She weighed almost nothing, like the heat had boiled her down to bone and breath. He carried her to the horse, and that's when Samuel leaned over and looked straight into her face. The boy went still, completely still. Then, "Papa." His voice was different. Not scared, not confused. Something worse. Certain. "Papa, I know her." Ethan's arms locked. "What'd you say?" "I know her. She used to read to me. She used to make the honey bread." The world tilted. Ethan looked down at the woman in his arms, past the sunburn, past the cracked lips, past the dirt and the blood and the ruined dress. And he saw her. Clara Whitmore. The woman who was supposed to be his wife. The woman who vanished 2 years ago without a word, without a letter, without a goodbye, leaving him standing on his own porch, holding a ring he'd carved from oak because he couldn't afford gold. His hands started shaking. "That ain't possible," he whispered. "It's her, Papa. I remember her eyes." Ethan couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't do anything except stare at the face he'd spent 2 years trying to forget, and 2 years failing. Then her lips moved, barely. A sound, not a word, Not yet. He leaned closer. Clara? Her eyelids fluttered. Clara, it's Ethan. Can you hear me? Her hand moved, fingers curled around his shirt. Weak, desperate. And she said one word. Run. He didn't run. He rode, hard and fast. Clara across the saddle in front of him, Samuel pressed against his back. The ranch was 40 minutes out at a normal pace. He made it in 20. Samuel, open the door. Get the water basin, the one under the kitchen shelf. Yes, Papa. The boy jumped down and ran. Ethan carried Clara inside, laid her on the bed in the back room, the room that hadn't been used since his wife died 4 years ago. He'd kept it clean, though. Old habit. Like keeping a grave tidy even when you stopped visiting. He pulled off what was left of her shoes. There weren't any, just rags tied around her feet, soaked through with blood. The soles were torn apart, blisters on top of blisters. Lord have mercy, he muttered. Samuel appeared with a basin, water sloshing over the sides. Set it down careful. Is she going to be okay, Papa? I don't know yet. She's real skinny. I can see that. She wasn't skinny before. Ethan wrung a cloth and pressed it to her forehead. She flinched, but didn't wake. Her breathing was shallow, fast, like a rabbit caught in a snare. He worked quiet, cleaned her feet, wrapped them in strips of cotton, put cool cloths on her neck, her wrists, tipped water into her mouth every few minutes until she started swallowing on her own. Samuel sat on the floor beside the bed, knees pulled to his chest, watching. Papa? Yeah? Why is she wearing a wedding dress? Ethan's jaw tightened. I don't know. Was she getting married? I said I don't know, Samuel. The boy went quiet. He knew that tone. Ethan stood, walked to the window, looked east, back toward the trail. Nothing. No rider. No dust cloud. Just empty prairie and relentless heat. But she'd said, run, which meant someone was behind her. He pulled his rifle from the rack above the door, checked the chamber, set it by the front window. Then he sat down and waited. She woke at dusk. The light had gone amber through the window, painting the walls gold. Ethan had dozed in the chair beside the bed, hat over his face, arms crossed. Samuel was asleep on the floor, curled around a pillow he'd dragged from the other room. Clara's eyes opened slow. She didn't move at first, just stared at the ceiling. Then her fingers touched the sheets, the bed frame, the cool cloth on her forehead. And she panicked. She sat up fast, gasping, hands flying to her throat like someone had been holding it. Hey, easy, easy! Ethan was on his feet, hands out, palms open. You're safe, you hear me? You're safe, you're in my house. Her eyes were wild, darting, taking in the room, the chair, the window, the rifle by the door, the sleeping boy. Then they landed on him, and everything stopped. Ethan. His name in her voice. After 2 years. It hit him somewhere behind the ribs, in a place he thought had gone numb. Yeah, it's me. Her face crumpled. Not slowly, not gracefully. It just broke. Like a dam that had held too long. Tears cut through the dust on her cheeks. I tried, she said. I tried to come back. I swear I tried. Okay, Clara. They wouldn't let me. I wrote you so many letters. I never got any letters. She froze. What? Not one, Clara. Not a single word. You disappeared. Middle of the night, gone. Nobody knew where. Nobody would say a damn thing. She stared at him. The tears kept falling, but her expression changed. From grief to something harder, something that looked like fury. "I wrote you 17 letters. I'm telling you, I never— 17. I numbered them. I gave them to Thomas." The name landed like a stone in still water. Thomas Reed. His foreman. His most trusted hand. The man who'd worked beside him for 6 years. The man who'd sat with him on this very porch the night Clara vanished and said, "She's gone, Ethan. Some women just leave." Ethan's fists clenched. "You gave them to Thomas. He said he'd deliver them. He promised me." "Thomas told me you left on your own. Said you took the morning coach east." Clara's voice dropped to a whisper. "He lied." Silence. The kind that rings. Samuel stirred on the floor, rolled over, didn't wake. Ethan sat down, not in the chair, on the floor, back against the wall, like his legs couldn't hold him anymore. 2 years, he said. "I know. I thought you chose to leave. I thought you chose not to answer." They looked at each other across the small room, and the distance between them felt like the whole Kansas plain, wide and flat and full of heat and nothing to hold on to. "Tell me everything," he said. She told him, slow at first, then faster, like the words had been dammed up so long they couldn't stop once the wall broke. "My father owed money, a lot of it, silver investments gone bad. He borrowed from Silas Whitmore. You know the name? Copper Ridge money. That's him. When father couldn't pay, Whitmore made an offer. His son Henry needed a wife. Respectable family name. Someone presentable for the banking circles in Dodge City. And your father said yes." "My father didn't ask me, Ethan. He told me the night before. Packed my trunk himself. Said it was done. Said I had no choice." "You had a choice. You could have come to me." "I tried," her voice cracked. "I climbed out the window that night, made it to the edge of town. Thomas found me on the road." Ethan's head came up. "Thomas. He said he'd help me. Said he'd take a message to you. Said to go back inside, keep quiet, and he'd bring you by morning." "He never came to me." "I know that now." "Why would he?" "Because he wanted me for himself." The words hung in the hot air like smoke. Ethan closed his eyes. "He told me once," Clara continued, "months before I left. Said he had feelings. I told him I was with you. He said he understood, shook my hand, smiled. And then he burned your letters. I don't know if he burned them, but he never gave them to you. And he told you I left by choice." Ethan's breathing was heavy, controlled, like a man holding back a flood with nothing but his hands. "I'll deal with Thomas." "Not yet." "Clara, I ain't finished." He waited. She swallowed, looked at her hands. They were trembling. "Whitmore's son, Henry. He wasn't cruel at first. Polite, formal. Treated me like a china plate. Something to display, not to touch. But I wouldn't agree to the wedding. Kept refusing. Kept saying I had someone waiting for me in Buckhorn. Kept writing letters and giving them to anyone who'd take them. Servants, delivery men, the preacher's wife. None of them reached me. Henry found out I was writing. He took my paper, my ink, locked the study, then locked the bedroom." Ethan's eyes opened, hard. "He locked you in a room." 8 months, Ethan." 8? "The servants brought food. A woman named Ruth. She was kind. She'd sit outside the door and talk to me. But I couldn't leave. Window was boarded from outside. Door locked every night." Samuel shifted on the floor again. This time he sat up, rubbing his eyes. "Papa, what's happening?" Go back to sleep, son.
Is she talking? Is she awake?
Clara looked at the boy, and something in her face, something wound tight and breaking, softened.
Hi, Samuel.
The boy scrambled to his feet.
You remember my name?
Of course I do. You were 4 years old last time I saw you. You used to bring me wildflowers with the roots still attached. Samuel grinned.
I remember. You put them in a jar and they died real fast.
They did, but they were the prettiest flowers I ever got. The boy looked at her feet, wrapped in cotton strips. His grin faded.
Who hurt you?
Clara glanced at Ethan. Ethan gave a small nod. Some people who didn't want me to come back here.
Are they coming?
Maybe. Samuel's jaw set. 6 years old, and his face looked exactly like his father's.
Then they'll have to get through us.
Ethan put his hand on the boy's shoulder. Samuel, go fill the water jug, the big one. But now, please. The boy left, reluctant, kept looking back over his shoulder until he rounded the corner. Clara wiped her eyes.
He looks like you.
Acts like his mama, stubborn as a fence post. A silence. Then, how'd you get out, Clara? She exhaled. Yesterday was supposed to be the wedding. Henry had a judge coming, a real one, papers already drawn. My father signed for me. He has legal right under the arrangement. That ain't legal. In Copper Ridge, with Whitmore money, everything's legal. So what happened? Ruth, the servant. She left the back door unlocked while the men were setting up the chapel. I walked out in the dress because I didn't have time to change. Took nothing. Climbed into a supply wagon heading west. Jumped off when I recognized the Buckhorn Road. And walked. 12 miles. Barefoot. My shoes broke apart after the first 3. In this heat? I know what it cost me, Ethan. I'd do it again. He looked at her a long time. The amber light had faded. The room was going dark. Somewhere outside, a coyote called, and another answered. You said run when I found you on the trail. You said run. Henry's man, a hired rider named Briggs. He follows anyone who leaves the Whitmore property. I saw him on the ridge before I collapsed. How far behind? Maybe 3 hours, maybe less. Ethan stood, slow, like a man who'd made a decision and was settling into the weight of it. He walked to the front room, checked the rifle again, loaded a second one, set both by the window. Clara appeared in the doorway, leaning against the frame, barely standing. You don't have to do this. I can keep moving, head further west. I didn't come here to bring trouble to your door. Ethan turned. Clara. Yeah? You walked 12 miles in 100-degree heat, barefoot, in a wedding dress, to get to this door. You ain't leaving through it. Her lip trembled. I don't deserve... Don't say that. Ethan, 2 years I sat on that porch, thinking you left because I wasn't enough. 2 years I told myself a ranch hand with dirt under his nails and a dead wife's memory ain't the kind of man a woman stays for. I accepted it. I buried it. And now you're telling me it was all a lie. It was. Then you ain't going nowhere. Not tonight, not tomorrow, not until I hear every word of every letter Thomas stole from me. She broke. Not dramatic, not loud. She just slid down the doorframe and sat on the floor, hands over her face, shoulders shaking. Samuel appeared with a water jug, saw her crying, set the jug down. Then he walked over, sat beside her, and put his small hand on her arm. It's okay, Miss Clara. Papa fixes everything. Ethan turned back to the window. The prairie was black now. No moon, no stars. Just heat and darkness and the sound of his own heart hammering. Somewhere out there, A man named Briggs was riding toward his ranch. And somewhere behind Briggs, a family with money and power and a piece of paper that said they owned a woman. Ethan racked the rifle. They could come, all of them. He'd buried one woman he loved. He wasn't about to lose another. Samuel fell asleep on the floor beside Clara's bed, his small hand still resting on her arm. Ethan didn't move him. The boy had always been like that, attached himself to people the way roots find water, quiet and stubborn and impossible to pull away. Ethan sat by the front window all night. He didn't sleep, didn't try. Every sound outside, coyote, wind, the barn door creaking, brought his hand to the rifle. His eyes stayed on the dark trail stretching east toward Copper Ridge. Nobody came. By dawn, his back ached and his eyes burned, but the trail was still empty. Clara's voice reached him from the back room. "Ethan?" He was on his feet before the second syllable. She was sitting up in bed, Samuel still curled beside her. Her color was better. Not good, but better. The wild panic from last night had settled into something quieter, exhaustion with purpose underneath it. "How are the feet?" "They hurt." "Can you walk?" "If I have to." "You don't have to. Not yet." She looked at him, and he saw the question she was afraid to ask. "Nobody came," he said. "Trail's been clear all night." Her shoulders dropped an inch. "That don't mean they ain't comin'," she said. "I know it." "Ethan, if you want me to move on—" "I told you last night. You ain't goin' nowhere." "And I'm tellin' you, Henry Whitmore don't lose things he considers his. He'll come, and he won't come alone." Ethan leaned against the doorframe. Then he better bring more than money and a piece of paper, because out here, neither one of those stops a bullet. Clara stared at him. "You'd shoot a man over this?" "I'd shoot a man who locked a woman in a room for 8 months and called it marriage. Wouldn't lose a minute of sleep over it either." Something flickered across her face. Not fear, not relief. Something older than both. "You haven't changed," she whispered. "Neither have you. Still trying to save everybody from the trouble you think you caused." "I did cause it." "Your father caused it. Whitmore caused it. Thomas caused it. You survived it. There's a difference." Samuel stirred, opened one eye. "Is it breakfast time?" Ethan almost smiled. "Yeah, son, it's breakfast time." The boy sat up, looked at Clara, and grinned like nothing in the world was wrong. "Can Miss Clara have the good eggs? The brown ones?" "She can have whatever she wants." Samuel scrambled off the bed and ran toward the kitchen, bare feet slapping against the wood floor. Clara watched him go. "He's a good boy, Ethan." "He's all I got." The words came out heavier than he meant. He cleared his throat. "I'm going to check the barn. Lock the door behind me."
"Ethan."
"Lock it." She nodded. He grabbed the rifle and walked out into the morning heat. The sun was already vicious, pressing down on the land like a hot iron. He crossed to the barn, checked the horses, filled the water troughs. Normal work. Steady work. The kind of work that kept a man's hands busy while his mind tore itself apart. Thomas Reed. 6 years. The man had worked beside him for 6 years. Helped him dig the well. Helped him birth calves in the spring. Sat on the porch drinking coffee on Sunday mornings while Samuel played in the dirt. And the whole time, the whole damn time, he'd been holding Clara's letters in his hands and letting Ethan believe she'd left on her own. Ethan's fist hit the barn post so hard the wood cracked. He stood there, breathing, forehead against the beam, eyes closed. 17 letters. She'd written 17 letters, and he'd spent 2 years thinking she didn't write one. He pulled himself together, walked back to the house, knocked twice, their old signal, 2 knocks and a pause, and Clara opened the door. "You remember," he said. "I remember everything." They stood there a moment, close enough to touch, neither one reaching. Then Samuel yelled from the kitchen, "The eggs are burning!" And the moment broke. Breakfast was quiet. Clara ate slow, careful, like she'd forgotten what real food tasted like. Samuel talked enough for all 3 of them, about the horses, about the garden, about the hawk that lived in the dead cottonwood tree by the creek. Clara listened to every word like it was scripture. When Samuel finally paused for breath, Clara said, "You've gotten so tall." "Papa says I grow an inch every time it rains, but it ain't rained in forever, so I reckon I'm stuck." Clara laughed. It was a small sound, broken around the edges, but it was real, and it filled the kitchen in a way Ethan hadn't heard in years. Then her face changed. "Ethan, where's Thomas now?" His fork stopped. "Working the south fence line. He's been out there 3 days. Due back tomorrow." "Tomorrow." "Yeah. He'll know I'm here. News travels. If Briggs is out there asking questions, Thomas will hear it." "Good." "No, not good. Thomas is smart, Ethan. He didn't just burn my letters. He planned it, every step. He told you I left willingly. He told my father you didn't want me. He played both sides." Ethan set his fork down. "He told your father what?" "That you'd moved on, found someone else, that I was foolish to wait. That's why your father agreed to the arrangement. He thought I had nothing to come back to. Thomas made sure of it." The kitchen went silent. Even Samuel stopped chewing. "Papa, you look real mad." "I am real mad, son." "At who?" "At someone who lied to me." "Thomas?" Both Ethan and Clara looked at the boy. "Why'd you say Thomas?" Ethan asked. Samuel shrugged. "He's the only one who lies around here. He told me once you said I couldn't ride the gray mare. But I asked you, and you said you never said that. And he always watches Miss Clara's old chair on the porch. Just stares at it. Gives me the creeps." Out of the mouths of children. Ethan pushed back from the table. "Samuel, I need you to do something important." "What?" "You know the Dawson place, 3 miles south?" "Yeah?" "I need you to ride there. Tell Mr. Dawson I need him to come over this afternoon. Tell him it's urgent." "Can I take the gray mare?" "You can take the gray mare." The boy was out the door in seconds. Clara watched him go. "Why Dawson?" "Because Dawson was sheriff for 20 years before he retired. He knows the law. He knows what's legal and what ain't. And he hates the Whitmore family, almost as much as I'm about to."
Ethan, this isn't just about Thomas. I know what it's about.
It's about a man who bought a woman with a debt note and locked her in a room until she agreed to marry his son. That ain't business. That's a crime. Not in Copper Ridge. We ain't in Copper Ridge. Clara went quiet. "There's something else," she said. Ethan waited. "Henry has a document, signed by my father. It says I agreed to the marriage willingly. It says I went to Copper Ridge of my own choice." "Did you sign anything?" "No." "Then it's a forgery." "It's got my father's name on it. In Copper Ridge, that's the same as mine." "Not here. Not in Buckhorn. Not anywhere a judge with a conscience would sit." "What if there ain't a judge with a conscience?" Ethan looked at her. "Then we make enough noise that the ones without one can't ignore it." Clara's hands were shaking again. She pressed them flat against the table. "I'm scared, Ethan." "I know. Not of Henry,
Not of Briggs.
I'm scared of what happens if this doesn't work. If they take me back. He reached across the table, covered her hands with his. First time he'd touched her in 2 years. Nobody's taking you anywhere. She looked at their hands. Your hands are rougher than I remember. 2 years of fence work and no one to tell me to wear gloves. A tear slid down her cheek, then another. I wrote you every week for the first year. Every single week. Then once a month. Then just whenever I thought I couldn't breathe anymore. The last letter I wrote was 3 days ago. I still had it when I ran. Where is it? She reached into the bodice of the ruined dress and pulled out a folded piece of paper, soft and damp with sweat. Handed it to him. He unfolded it. The handwriting was cramped, desperate, written on the back of what looked like a hymnal page. He read it. Then he read it again. Then he folded it and put it in his shirt pocket, right against his chest. I'll carry this one, he said, seeing as I missed the other 16. Clara broke. Not gentle, not quiet. She put her forehead on the table and sobbed. The kind of sobbing that comes from a place so deep it doesn't have a name. Ethan moved around the table, knelt beside her, put his arms around her shoulders. I'm here, he said. I ain't going anywhere. I thought you'd hate me. I tried. Couldn't manage it. She lifted her head. Her face was a mess. Red, swollen, streaked with tears and dust. I look terrible. You look alive. That's enough. She almost laughed. Almost. Then a sound from outside. Hooves on hard ground, fast, and they both froze. Ethan was at the window with a rifle in 3 strides. A single rider, coming from the south. Not Briggs. Samuel. On the gray mare, riding hard, legs too short for the stirrups and bouncing all over the saddle. Ethan opened the door. Samuel, slow down! The boy pulled up, breathless. Papa, Mr. Dawson ain't home, but his wife said he went to town, and Papa, he swallowed hard. Thomas is in town. Mrs. Dawson saw him at the general store this morning. He wasn't at the south fence. He's been in town all day. Ethan's blood went cold. Did she say who he was talking to? She said there was a stranger with him, a man she didn't know. Big, rode a black horse. Clara's hand found the doorframe. Briggs, she whispered. Ethan set his jaw. Thomas wasn't at the south fence because Thomas already knew. Maybe Briggs found him first. Maybe Thomas had been waiting for this. Maybe the man who burned 17 letters had one more betrayal left in him. Samuel, get inside. Papa, inside, now. The boy obeyed. Ethan turned to Clara. Can you handle a rifle? You taught me yourself, summer of '78. That was a lifetime ago. Some things you don't forget. He handed her the second rifle. She checked the chamber the way he'd shown her. Quick, clean, no hesitation. If anyone rides up and I ain't standing, he said, you shoot first and ask forgiveness later. Ethan, don't talk like that. I'm being practical. You're being dramatic. Maybe, but I ain't being wrong. She held the rifle across her lap, sitting by the back window where she could see the north trail. Ethan stayed at the front. Samuel sat between them on the kitchen floor, drawing in the dust with his finger. An hour passed. Then 2. The heat was suffocating. Air thick and still. Nothing moved outside. Samuel broke the silence. Papa, can I ask you something? Go ahead. If Miss Clara stays, does that mean I get a mama again? The question hit the room like a thunderclap. Clara's breath caught. Ethan closed his eyes. Samuel, It ain't that simple.
Why not? She's nice. She makes honey bread. And you smiled at breakfast. You never smile at breakfast.
Son,
I'm just saying.
it'd be nice to have someone who smiles back. Clara pressed her hand to her mouth. Ethan opened his eyes, looked at his son, looked at Clara. Let's get through today first, he said. That means maybe, Samuel said. That means let's get through today. That always means maybe. Clara let out a sound halfway between a laugh and a sob. Then dust on the horizon. Ethan's hand tightened on the rifle. 2 riders this time, coming from the east, moving slow, deliberate, not in a hurry. Men who weren't in a hurry were the most dangerous kind. It meant they were certain. Ethan stood. Clara, take Samuel to the back room.
No.
Clara, I said no.
I'm done hiding in rooms. Whatever's coming, I'm standing.
He looked at her, saw the fire in her eyes, the same fire he'd fallen in love with 3 years ago, the fire he thought Copper Ridge had stamped out. It hadn't. Then stand behind me.
Beside you.
Clara,
Beside you, Ethan.
he exhaled hard. Fine. Samuel, get in the back room.
But Papa,
This ain't a discussion. Go. The boy went, for once without argument. He'd seen his father's face. Ethan opened the front door and stepped onto the porch. Clara came out beside him, rifle in hand, standing straight despite the pain in her feet. The riders drew closer. The first one Ethan recognized by the way he sat his horse, slouched left, one hand always on the horn. Thomas Reed, his foreman, his friend, his Judas. The second rider was bigger, broader, a man built for violence, sitting a black horse that glistened with sweat. A pistol on each hip, no expression on his face. Briggs. They stopped 20 yards from the porch. Thomas pushed his hat back, had the nerve to smile. Ethan! Get off my land, Thomas. The smile didn't waver. Now that ain't neighborly. I just came to talk. You've done enough talking. About 2 years too much. Thomas's eyes moved to Clara. Something shifted in his face. Surprise, maybe, that she was standing, that she was armed, that she was right there, alive and furious, instead of locked in a Copper Ridge bedroom. Clara, he said, you look... Don't speak to me. Thomas raised his hands. I understand you're upset. Upset? Clara's voice cut through the heat like a blade. You stole 2 years of my life. You burned my letters. You told him I left. You told my father he didn't want me. Upset ain't the word, Thomas. Briggs leaned forward in his saddle, spoke for the first time. Ma'am, I'm here on behalf of Mr. Henry Whitmore. He's requested your return to Copper Ridge to fulfill a lawful agreement. There ain't nothing lawful about locking a woman in a room. I don't know anything about that, ma'am. I'm just here to deliver a message. Ethan stepped forward. 1 step. Just enough. Message is delivered. Now ride. Briggs looked at him. Cool. Measuring. Mr. Whitmore wanted me to mention that he has a signed document. Miss Whitmore's father agreed to the arrangement. It's legally binding. Her name ain't Whitmore, it's Clara. And a document signed under coercion by a debtor ain't worth the paper it's on. That's for a judge to decide, sir. Then tell Whitmore to bring a judge. Until then, this is my property. She's here by her own will. And you're trespassing. Briggs nodded slowly. I'll relay that. He turned his horse, started riding. Thomas didn't move. Ethan, can I have a word? Just you and me? You're going to have several. None of them kind. Thomas dismounted. Slow. hands visible, walked toward the porch with that same easy stride he'd always had. The walk of a man who thought he owned every room he entered. He stopped at the bottom of the porch steps. "I did what I did because I loved her. You did what you did because you wanted what wasn't yours. She was never yours either. She was her own."
That's the part you never understood.
Thomas's jaw worked. "I gave her a chance. I told her father Ethan Caldwell was a broke rancher with a dead wife and a small boy. I said she deserved better." "You don't get to decide what she deserves." "And you do?"
No, she does. And she walked 12 miles barefoot through hell to get here. Not to your door, Thomas. To mine."
Thomas flinched, just barely, but Ethan saw it. "I ain't apologizing," Thomas said.
I ain't asking. I'm telling you. You're done. At this ranch, in this town. You come back here again, and I won't be standing on the porch talking.
"You threatening me?"
I'm promising you."
Thomas looked past Ethan to Clara. His expression changed, something raw and wounded breaking through the mask. "I could have made you happy," he said to her. Clara lifted the rifle, not to her shoulder, just enough. "Get on your horse, Thomas." He stared at her a long moment. Then he turned, mounted up, and rode east. Didn't look back. Ethan watched him until the dust swallowed him. Clara lowered the rifle. Her hands were trembling again, but her voice was steady.
"He'll bring Henry. You know that.
"I know."
And my father.
"I know that too."
And this time, they won't send a messenger."
Ethan turned to her. "Good, because I'm done with messages." From inside the house, Samuel's voice. "Can I come out now?" "Yeah, son." The boy appeared in the doorway, looked at Clara, looked at Ethan, looked at the empty trail where Thomas had been.
Did Thomas leave?
"Yeah."
For good?
Ethan put his hand on his son's head. "For good." Samuel nodded, satisfied. Then he looked up at Clara.
"You're shaking, Miss Clara." "I know. Papa shakes sometimes too, after the bad nights. He don't think I see it, but I do."
Clara knelt down, eye level with the boy, took his small face in her hands.
"Your papa is the bravest man I've ever known." "I know,"
Samuel said.
"But he's real bad at cooking."
Clara laughed, full and broken and beautiful. And Ethan stood on the porch of his small ranch, rifle in hand, watching the heat shimmer on the trail where his enemies would come. And for the first time in 2 years, he felt something inside him shift. Not heal, not yet, but turn toward the light, the way a dying plant turns toward rain. He looked at Clara and his son, framed in the doorway. Whatever was coming, it would find them together. And that made all the difference. 2 days passed without a rider on the trail. That silence was worse than any threat. Ethan knew it. Clara knew it. Even Samuel, who'd stopped asking questions and started watching the horizon the way his father did. Quiet, steady, waiting, understood that silence from men like Henry Whitmore didn't mean surrender. It meant preparation. Dawson showed up the first evening after Thomas left. Rode in slow on his old bay gelding, hat pulled low. A man who'd worn a badge long enough to smell trouble from 10 miles out. Ethan met him on the porch. "Heard you've got company," Dawson said. "Word travels fast." "Small town. Mrs. Dawson saw Thomas with a stranger at the general store. Stranger was asking about your ranch, asking about a woman in a white dress." He dismounted, tied the horse. "You want to tell me what's going on, or should I guess?" "Come inside." Clara told her story again, slower this time, steadier, the way people do when the first telling has ripped the wound open and the second is just cleaning it. Dawson listened without interrupting. His face didn't change, his eyes did. When she finished, he sat quiet for a long time. "You say Henry Whitmore has a document signed by your father?" "Yes, sir." "And you never signed anything yourself?" "Not a single page." "And you were confined against your will for 8 months?" "Locked in a room, boarded window, door locked from outside every night." Dawson rubbed his jaw. "That's unlawful imprisonment. Don't matter what paper the father signed. A woman can't be contracted into marriage against her will. Not in Kansas. Not anywhere the law means anything." "Copper Ridge doesn't care about the law," Clara said. "Copper Ridge ain't here." Dawson looked at Ethan. "You expecting them to come?" "I'm counting on it." "How many?" "Henry, Briggs, that's the hired gun, probably Clara's father, maybe Thomas, could be more." Dawson nodded slow. "I'll put word out. Buckhorn may be small, but folks here know right from wrong, and they remember Clara." Clara looked up. "They remember me?" "Ma'am, half the women in town lit candles when you disappeared. Sarah Dawson prayed for you every Sunday for a year. You think people forgot? They didn't. They just didn't know where to look." Clara pressed her lips together, looked away. Her hands gripped the edge of the table. "I thought nobody cared." "That's what they wanted you to think. Isolation is how men like Whitmore keep power. Take away the people. Take away the voice." Dawson stood. "I'll be back tomorrow with a few good men. Ranchers who don't scare easy. We'll be here when they come." "If they come," Clara said. Dawson tipped his hat. "They'll come. Money always does." He rode out just before dark. Ethan locked the doors, checked the rifles, set Samuel to bed. Then he sat at the kitchen table across from Clara. Neither spoke for a long time. "You should sleep," she said. "So should you." "I can't. Every time I close my eyes, I'm back in that room." "Then don't close them. Stay up with me." She looked at him across the table. The lamplight caught the edges of her face, the sharpness that hadn't been there before, the hollows under her cheekbones. "You want to know what I wrote in those letters?" "You don't have to. I want to." The first one said I was sorry, that I didn't choose to leave, that my father made the decision and I had no warning. And the second? That I loved you, that I'd find a way back. The third? That the house was cold and Henry was formal and nobody laughed, that I missed Samuel's voice. The fourth? That I was losing hope. Clara, the eighth one said I forgave you for not coming, because I thought you'd chosen to move on. I thought Thomas told you I was gone, and you decided to let me be. I would have come if I'd known. I know that now, but back then, alone in that room, with nobody answering, the only thing left was forgiveness. It was the only way I could survive it. Ethan's hand found hers across the table. You shouldn't have had to survive it. But I did. Yeah, you did. Her fingers tightened around his. Letter number 17, the last one. You read it. I did. Then you know what it said. You said you were coming home, no matter what it cost. And here I am. And here you are. They sat like that until the lamp burned low, not talking, just holding on. The third morning broke hotter than the ones before. Ethan was in the barn when Samuel came running. "Papa, riders!" Ethan dropped the feed bucket and moved. From the porch he could see them. Not 2 this time. 5. Coming from the east in a loose line, moving steady. The lead horse was white, expensive, groomed, The kind of animal that belonged in a stable, not on a prairie trail. Henry Whitmore. Ethan had never met the man, but he didn't need to. Money rode a certain way, like it expected the ground to bow. Behind the white horse, Briggs on his black. Then a man Ethan didn't recognize. Older, thin, hunched in the saddle like he'd rather be anywhere else. Clara's father. The fourth rider was Thomas Reed. He'd changed his shirt, combed his hair, playing the part of a reasonable man. The fifth rider made Ethan's stomach tighten. A man in a black coat, leather satchel strapped to a saddle. A lawyer. They brought the law with them, Ethan said. Clara stepped onto the porch beside him. She'd changed into one of Ethan's old shirts and a pair of trousers she'd hemmed with kitchen scissors. Her feet were still bandaged, still raw. She didn't flinch. "That's my father," she said. "The thin one." "I see him." "He won't look at me. He never could, after what he did." Ethan glanced at her. "You ready?" "No, but I'm standing." "That's enough." Dawson rode in from the south with 3 men, ranch hands from neighboring spreads, men with hard faces and steady hands. They pulled up beside the porch, dismounted, and stood in a loose half-circle behind Ethan. Nobody spoke. Nobody needed to. The 5 riders from Copper Ridge stopped 30 yards from the house. Henry Whitmore dismounted first. He was younger than Ethan expected, maybe 30, clean-shaven, tall, wore a tailored coat that had no business being on a prairie. His eyes moved across the porch, the men, the rifles, and settled on Clara. Clara. His voice was smooth, controlled, the voice of a man accustomed to having his words obeyed. Clara didn't answer. Henry took a step forward. Ethan raised the rifle. Not to his shoulder, just enough. "That's close enough." Henry stopped, looked at Ethan, assessed him the way a man assesses a fence. How high, how strong, how much work to tear it down. "I'm not here for trouble," Henry said. "Then turn around." "I'm here because my fiancée left our home without explanation, and I've come to ensure her safety." "She's safe?" "I'd like to hear that from her." Clara's voice came flat and hard. "I'm safe. Now leave." Henry's jaw tightened. The mask slipped, just a fraction. "Clara, we have an agreement. Your father and mine. Your father bought me with a debt note. That ain't an agreement. That's a transaction." "That's a legal contract." "Then let's talk about what else is legal." Clara stepped forward, 1 step past Ethan. He let her go. "Is it legal to board a woman's window shut? Is it legal to lock her in a room for 8 months? Is it legal to take her paper and ink so she can't write for help?" Henry's face went still. "Those are accusations, Clara, strong ones." "They're facts, and I'll swear to them in front of any judge in Kansas." The lawyer shifted on his horse, reached for his satchel. "If I may—" "You may not," Dawson said. His voice carried the weight of a man who'd stared down worse than lawyers. "Not on this property. Not without an invitation." "Sir, I have a legally binding—" "You have a piece of paper signed by a debtor under duress. I've seen enough of those to know what they're worth. About as much as the horse dung on this trail." 2 of the ranch hands behind Ethan chuckled. Low. Dangerous. Henry looked at them, looked at the rifles, looked at Dawson. "This is not a matter for vigilantes." "We ain't vigilantes," Dawson said. "We're neighbors. There's a difference." Clara's father hadn't dismounted. He sat his horse like a man made of paper, thin and crumpling in the heat. His eyes darted everywhere. The porch, the men, the rifles, everywhere except at his daughter.
Father,
His head twitched.
look at me.
Slowly, painfully, the old man's eyes found Clara's face.
You signed the paper that said I went willingly. You know I didn't.
Clara, I didn't have a choice.
You had a choice. You chose money over me.
I owed more than I could pay in a lifetime. Whitmore would have taken everything, the house, the land.
So you sold your daughter instead.
I thought you'd be taken care of. I thought Henry would be kind.
Kind.
Clara's voice dropped to a whisper.
He locked me in a room. 8 months. I ate meals off a tray slid under a door. I slept in a bed I couldn't leave. And you thought he'd be kind.
Her father's face collapsed, tears on his cheeks, mixing with the sweat and dust. I didn't know, Clara. I swear on your mother's grave, I didn't know. You didn't ask. The old man bowed his head, said nothing. Thomas had been quiet, sitting his horse behind the others, watching. Playing the part of the bystander, the witness, the man with no stake in the fight. Ethan wasn't going to let him play it any longer. Thomas, the foreman straightened. Get down off that horse. Thomas dismounted, took his time, walked forward with his hands at his sides, that same easy confidence that Ethan used to admire and now recognized for what it was, the armor of a liar. Ethan, I know you're angry. 17 letters. Thomas stopped. She wrote me 17 letters. You took every one. And you told me she left on her own. I was trying to protect you. You were trying to steal her. That ain't true. She told you she had feelings for me. You said you understood. Then you went behind my back and destroyed every connection between us. You told her father I'd moved on. You told me she chose to leave. Thomas's eyes went to Clara. I loved you, he said. That's the truth of it. I looked at Ethan's life, a broken-down ranch, a motherless boy, nothing in the bank, and I thought you deserved more. I thought I could give you more. You didn't love me, Clara said. You wanted to own me, same as Henry, same as my father. Different method, same cage. The words landed like a slap. Thomas's composure cracked. His face twisted, not anger, not shame, something worse. The look of a man who'd built a lie so tall he could see the whole world from the top of it. And now it was falling. I never meant for it to go this far, he said. I thought if enough time passed, she'd forget. You'd both forget, and maybe she'd settle for you. Yes. The admission dropped into the silence like a stone into a well. Samuel's voice came from the doorway. Nobody had noticed him. He stood in the frame, small and fierce, fists at his sides. You made Papa cry. Every head turned. Samuel, get inside, Ethan started. No. The boy's voice was shaking, but his feet were planted. Thomas, you came to our house. You ate our food. You sat on our porch. And the whole time you had Miss Clara's letters, and you let Papa be sad. You let him think nobody loved him. Thomas's face went white. I heard him at night, Samuel continued, through the wall. He didn't know I could hear, but I did. Every time. Ethan's throat closed. Son, you're a liar, Thomas, and liars don't get to say sorry. The prairie went silent. Even the wind stopped. Henry Whitmore cleared his throat. This is all very touching, but it doesn't change the legal reality. I have a contract. I have a witness, her father, and I have a judge in Copper Ridge who'll enforce it. Dawson stepped forward. Then bring your judge to Buckhorn. We'll see how far Copper Ridge law stretches. This isn't your concern, old man. I was sheriff of this territory for 20 years. Every crime Clara just described, unlawful imprisonment, coercion, fraud, those are my concern. And if your Copper Ridge judge wants to sit in my courtroom, he'll answer for why he didn't investigate a woman who vanished for 2 years. Henry's mask slipped further. Beneath the polished surface, something ugly surfaced. The petulance of a man who'd never been told no. She's coming back with me. She ain't. I'll bring the U.S. Marshal. Do it. I'll have Clara's testimony ready, along with the testimony of Ruth, your family's servant who unlocked the door, along with the testimony of every servant who brought trays to a locked room, along with the testimony of the preacher's wife who took Clara's letters and never saw them delivered. Henry went still. Ruth wouldn't dare. Ruth already sent word through Dawson's wife, Clara said. She's been waiting for someone to ask. 2 years she watched what your family did to me. She's ready to talk. Henry looked at his lawyer. The lawyer shook his head, small, almost invisible, but everyone saw it. This isn't over, Henry said. Yeah, it is. Ethan lowered the rifle, set it against the porch rail, stepped down the steps until he was face to face with Henry Whitmore. You listen to me. I don't have your money. I don't have your lawyers. I don't have a judge in my pocket. But I've got something you ain't ever had. A woman who chose me. Not because of a contract, not because of a debt, because she walked through hell to get here. He leaned closer, dropped his voice. You ride back to Copper Ridge. You tear up that paper, and you forget Clara's name. Because if I see you on my land again, I won't be talking. Henry stared at him. The polish was gone. Underneath was a boy, angry, humiliated, powerless for the first time in his life. My father will hear about this. Tell him whatever you want. Out here, money don't ride louder than truth. Henry turned, mounted the white horse. Didn't look at Clara. Didn't look at anyone. Briggs followed without a word. The lawyer followed faster. Clara's father sat his horse a moment longer. His eyes found Clara. I'm sorry, he whispered. I know it ain't enough, but I'm sorry. Clara looked at the man who raised her, the man who sold her. Go home, Father. Can you ever? I don't know. Maybe someday. Not today. He nodded, turned his horse, rode after the others, smaller in the saddle than when he'd come. Thomas was the last one standing. He looked at Ethan, looked at Clara, looked at Samuel in the doorway. I'm sorry, he said, for all of it. Sorry don't give me back 2 years, Ethan said. No, I reckon it don't. Get off my land, Thomas, and if I hear your name in this territory again, I'll make sure it's the last time. Thomas mounted up, rode east. He looked back once. Clara didn't watch him go. Dawson let out a long breath. Well, that's about the most excitement I've had since retirement. One of the ranch hands laughed. Another holstered a pistol Ethan hadn't even seen him draw. It's done? Clara asked. Her voice was thin, stretched, like a wire about to snap. For now, Dawson said, I'll file a report, get statements. If Whitmore pushes it, and he might, we'll have enough to bury him in court. And if he don't push it? Then it's done. Clara's legs gave out, not from heat this time, not from exhaustion, from the sudden absence of the thing she'd been fighting for 2 years. The weight lifted, and without it, she didn't know how to stand. Ethan caught her. He held her on the porch, in front of Dawson and the ranch hands and his 6-year-old son, and he didn't care who saw. She gripped his shirt with both fists and pressed her face into his chest and shook. You're free, he said.
I don't remember what that feels like.
You'll learn. Samuel walked over, squeezed himself between them, wrapped his arms around Clara's waist. You're staying, he said, not a question. Clara looked down at the boy, looked up at Ethan.
Yeah, she said. I'm staying.
Dawson tipped his hat, mounted his horse, and rode out with his men. The trail cleared. The dust settled. The kitchen was quiet that evening. Samuel ate 2 helpings of everything and fell asleep at the table, face pressed against his arm. Ethan carried him to bed, pulled the blanket up, stood there a moment, watching his son's face, so peaceful it hurt. When he came back, Clara was sitting on the porch. He sat beside her. The heat was easing, just barely. A breeze from the west carried the faintest scent of rain, the first in weeks.
Ethan.
Yeah?
I ain't the same woman who left.
I ain't the same man who let her go.
You didn't let me go.
Felt like it. Every day for 2 years. She leaned her head against his shoulder. What happens now? Now you rest. Now you heal. Now we figure out the rest, one day at a time. That sounds too simple. Simple is what we earned. She closed her eyes. I can hear your heartbeat. Good. Means I'm still alive.
Ethan?
Yeah?
Thank you for waiting.
His arm came around her, careful, like she was something precious. Because she was. I didn't know I was waiting, he said. I just knew I wasn't done. They sat on the porch until the stars came out. Neither of them spoke. The prairie stretched around them, vast and empty and full of silence. And for the first time in a long time, the silence didn't hurt. Clara didn't sleep through the night for the first week. Ethan knew because he didn't either. He'd hear her through the wall, not crying, not screaming, just moving. The creak of the bed frame, bare feet on the floor, the back door opening and closing. He'd find her on the porch at 3 a.m, knees pulled to her chest, staring east like she expected riders to come out of the dark. He never told her to go back to bed, just sat beside her, sometimes with coffee, sometimes with nothing. On the 4th night, she spoke first. I keep checking the door. I know. To make sure it opens. His chest tightened. It opens, Clara. It'll always open. My head knows that. The rest of me ain't caught up yet. He didn't touch her. Didn't try. Some things needed time more than they needed hands. You want me to take the lock off the bedroom door? She looked at him. Something in her eyes shifted. Surprise, maybe, that he understood without her having to explain. Would you? He took it off that night, removed the hardware, filled the holes with wood putty. When she saw the smooth, blank door the next morning, she stood in front of it for a full minute, just touching the wood where the lock used to be. She didn't say thank you. She didn't need to. The way her shoulders dropped told him everything. Samuel adapted faster than either of them. Children did that, bent toward warmth without overthinking it. Within days, he'd rearranged his entire routine around Clara's presence. Morning eggs became her responsibility because, as he announced with absolute authority, Papa burns the edges and you don't. Clara took to it like breathing. Not because she was trying to fill a role, because the boy needed feeding and she needed purpose, and the two things found each other naturally. But the rest of it, the space between Clara and Ethan, the careful distance they maintained, that moved slower, much slower. They talked every evening on the porch, long, winding conversations that started nowhere and ended somewhere unexpected. She told him about Copper Ridge, the cold formality of the Whitmore house, the servants who pitied her but couldn't help, the way Henry spoke to her like she was a ledger entry, polite, precise, devoid of feeling. He never raised his voice, she said. Not once. That was almost worse. A man who yells, you can fight. A man who talks calm while he locks your door, that's a different kind of cruelty. Did he ever touch you? The question had been sitting between them for days. Ethan finally let it out, and it landed heavy. Clara was quiet a long time. No, not the way you mean. He wanted a wife for appearances, for the name, for the social standing. Whatever he needed from a woman, he got elsewhere. I was furniture, Ethan. Expensive furniture he kept in a locked room. Ethan's fist clenched on his knee. That ain't better. I know it ain't, but it's the truth. And I'd rather you had the truth than the version you've been building in your head. He looked at her. What version? The one where you ride to Copper Ridge and put a bullet in Henry Whitmore. He didn't deny it. The thought crossed my mind. I know. That's why I'm telling you now. He didn't touch me. He caged me. And I got out. Killing him won't undo what happened. It'll just give him the last word, because you'd hang for it, and Samuel would lose his father. Ethan exhaled, long and slow. When'd you get so smart? I had 8 months in a locked room with nothing to do but think. A person gets real clear about what matters when everything else is stripped away. And what matters? This porch. That boy. You. She said it plain. No drama, no tears. Like stating the weather. Ethan couldn't speak for a moment. Clara, I need to tell you something. Okay. After you left, after I thought you left, I wasn't good. I ain't talking about sad. I'm talking about broken. I stopped working the ranch for 3 weeks. Dawson came out, found me sitting in the kitchen in the dark. Samuel was feeding himself crackers and well water. I wasn't taking care of him. Wasn't taking care of anything. Clara's hand moved toward him, then stopped. Dawson told me to get up or he'd take Samuel. Said a boy deserved a father who functioned. That got me moving. But I wasn't living, Clara. I was operating. Like a machine someone wound up each morning. Ethan, I need you to hear this, because you came back thinking you owe me something. Thinking I held everything together while you were gone. I didn't. I fell apart. And the only reason I'm standing now is because a 6-year-old boy needed breakfast every morning, and I couldn't let him down. Clara covered her mouth with her hand. So don't put me on a pedestal, he said. Don't make me the hero of this story. I'm just a man who kept getting up because his son was hungry. That is heroic, you fool. He blinked. Getting up when everything in you wants to stay down? That's the hardest thing a person can do. I know because I did it too. Every morning in that room, every morning when no letter came back, I got up because stopping meant they won. They looked at each other in the dark. We're a pair, ain't we? Ethan said. We're a wreck. Yeah. But we're here. We're here. The second week, Clara's feet healed enough to walk without wincing. She started helping around the ranch, small things at first. Feeding the chickens, mending a shirt Samuel had torn on the fence, sweeping the porch, which Ethan had apparently not swept since the last ice age. There are cobwebs older than your son in these corners, she said. They keep the flies out. That's not how cobwebs work, Ethan. Worked fine before you got here. Samuel, passing through with a bucket of water, said, It did not work fine. We had so many flies, Papa. Traitor, Ethan muttered. Clara laughed, and this time it didn't break at the edges. It was full and warm, and it filled the kitchen the way sunlight fills a room when you open the curtains after a long, dark winter. Ethan turned away so she wouldn't see his face, but Samuel saw, and grinned. The third week brought trouble nobody expected. Clara was hanging laundry on the line when a wagon pulled up. A woman driving, mid-50s, iron gray hair, back straight as a rail. Sarah Dawson. "Clara Whitmore?" Clara's hands stilled on the clothesline. "It's just Clara now." "Good, because I've got something for you." Sarah reached behind the wagon seat and pulled out a wooden box, set it on the ground. "What is this?" Clara asked. "Open it." Clara knelt, lifted the lid. Inside, paper. Stacks of it. Letters. Dozens of letters, all different hands, different ink, different paper. Some sealed, some open, some crumpled and smoothed out again. "I don't understand," Clara whispered. "After you disappeared, some of us wrote to you. Didn't know where to send them. Sarah Keller at the post office held them. Said someday you'd come back, or someday we'd find you. 2 years' worth." Clara picked up the first letter, opened it with trembling hands. Her lips moved as she read. Then she picked up the second, then the third. "These are from the women in town." "Every one of them. Martha wrote you about her new grandbaby. Ellen wrote about the church fundraiser. I wrote you 6 myself. Practical things, mostly. Where the best flour was. What the new preacher was like. Ordinary things." "Why ordinary things?" Sarah's voice softened. "Because ordinary things are what you miss most when everything else has gone wrong. I figured wherever you were, you'd want to know that life kept going here. That there was something to come back to." Clara sat on the ground, surrounded by 2 years of letters she never received, and cried. Sarah sat beside her. Didn't hug her. Didn't fuss. Just sat. "You're home now," Sarah said, "and we don't let our own disappear twice." Ethan watched from the barn doorway. He'd heard it all. Didn't interfere. Some things belonged to women, and this was one of them. But when Sarah left, and Clara came inside holding that box like it was made of gold, she set it on the table and looked at him with something he hadn't seen in her eyes since she came back. Hope. Not the desperate kind, not the hanging on by your fingernails kind, the real kind, the kind that grows roots. "People remembered me," she said. "I told you, you ain't the kind of woman people forget." "You never told me that." "I'm telling you now." She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. "I want to write them back. Every one of them." "Then write them back." "I don't have paper." "I'll get you paper." "Or ink." "I'll get you ink." "Ethan, I don't have anything. I came here with a torn dress and 1 letter. Everything I own fits in the palm of my hand." He pulled a chair out from the table, sat down. "Clara, everything I own fits on 60 acres of dust and a boy who eats too much. You ain't marrying into wealth, but you'll have paper and ink and a door that don't lock." She went still. "You said marrying." He went still too. "I did." "You meant that?" "I don't say things I don't mean. You know that about me." "Ethan, it's been 2 weeks." "It's been 2 years and 2 weeks. And before that, it was the better part of a year of me trying to figure out how to ask you the first time. I ain't rushing you. I ain't asking you today. But I need you to know the direction I'm walking." Clara sat down across from him, put her hands flat on the table, the way she did when she was trying to hold herself steady. "I'm not healed." "Neither am I." "I wake up at night and check the doors." "I know. I hear you." "I flinch when someone raises their voice." "Samuel and I ain't exactly the yelling type." I'm serious, Ethan. So am I. I don't need you healed. I don't need you fixed. I need you here. The rest comes when it comes. Her eyes filled. You're going to make me cry again. You can cry all you want. I took the lock off the tear ducts, too. She laughed through the tears, hit his arm. That's a terrible joke. I know. Samuel tells me every day. She wiped her face, took a breath. Okay. Okay what? Okay, I know the direction you're walking, and I ain't walking the other way. That's all I needed to hear. Samuel appeared in the doorway. He had a habit of materializing at precisely the moment adults thought they were having a private conversation. Are y'all getting married? Samuel, because if you are, I want to wear my good boots, the brown ones. Nobody's getting married today. Tomorrow? No. Next week? Samuel, I'm just planning ahead, Papa. Clara pulled the boy onto her lap. He went willingly, leaning back against her like he'd been doing it his whole life. We're taking it slow, she told him. One day at a time. That's what Papa said. But he also said that about fixing the barn roof, and it's been 2 years. Ethan rubbed his face. The boy makes a point, Clara said. Don't encourage him. I'm just saying, the barn roof, Ethan. You've been here 2 weeks, and you're already ganging up on me. Get used to it, Samuel said cheerfully. And for the first time, the very first time since Clara stumbled onto the Buckhorn Trail in a torn wedding dress, the house felt like a house again. Not a shelter, not a fortress, a home. The 4th week, a letter arrived. Ethan brought it in from the road, where the mail rider had left it in the box. Plain envelope, no return address. Copper Ridge postmark. He set it on the table without opening it. Clara saw it, recognized the handwriting. That's my father's hand. You want me to open it? No, I'll do it. She sat down, stared at the envelope a long time. Then she opened it, unfolded the single page inside, and read. Ethan watched her face, saw it shift, from guarded to confused to something he couldn't name. She set the letter down. He paid the debt. What? My father. He sold the house, sold the land, paid Whitmore every cent. The debt is settled. The contract is void. She paused. He says Henry agreed to destroy the marriage document. It's done. Where's your father now? He's moving east, his sister's place in Missouri. He says he can't stay in Copper Ridge, can't face the town knowing what he did. Does he ask to see you? No. He says he don't deserve to. Says he knows that. Says he just wanted me to know the debt was clear and nobody's coming for me again. Clara folded the letter carefully, precisely, like it was something fragile. He sold everything. Sounds like it. For me. After everything he did, he sold everything he had to undo it. Does that change things? Clara was quiet a long time. It doesn't erase it, but it means he heard me. That day on the porch, when I told him to go home, he heard me. People can surprise you. Some people, not all. No, not all. She put the letter in the box with the others. The box from the women of Buckhorn. 2 years of words she'd never received. And now, one more. From the man who'd failed her worst and tried, too late and not enough, to make it right. Ethan didn't tell her how to feel about it. Wasn't his place. But that night on the porch, she sat closer than usual. And when her head found his shoulder, she didn't pull away. Ethan. Yeah? I want to do something. Name it. The children on the neighboring ranches, the Dawson girls, the Keller boys,
The little ones from the heart spread. None of them can read.
Most ranchers don't have time for schooling.
I know. That's why I want to teach them.
He turned to look at her. You want to start a school?
Not a school, just lessons. Here, on the porch.
Twice a week. I can teach reading and writing. Basic arithmetic. Where'd this come from?
From a locked room where I had nothing but my own mind to keep me sane. From 17 letters nobody read. From a box of letters written by women who cared enough to put words on paper when they didn't even know if I was alive.
She straightened, looked him in the eye.
Words saved me, Ethan. When I couldn't leave that room, I wrote. When nobody answered, I still wrote. Words were the only thing they couldn't take from me, and I want to make sure no child on this prairie grows up without them.
He held her gaze. I'll build you a table. Big one. For the porch.
I don't need anything fancy.
You'll have a table, and benches, and a proper slate board.
Ethan,
I lost 2 years I should have spent building you things. Let me start now. Her lip trembled. She bit it. Hard.
You're doing it again.
Doing what?
Making me fall in love with you.
And I just got done falling the first time. He reached over, took her hand, laced his fingers through hers. Then don't stop. Samuel's voice from inside the house, muffled by walls and distance, but clear as a bell. I can hear y'all being romantic, and it's disgusting. Ethan dropped his head. Clara pressed her hand over her mouth.
How does he hear everything? She whispered.
I've been asking that question for 6 years.
Go to sleep, Samuel.
I will when y'all stop being mushy.
Good night, Samuel.
Good night, Miss Clara. Good night, Papa. Good night, Papa's girlfriend. Ethan groaned. Clara's shoulders shook with laughter she was trying to contain.
Papa's girlfriend, she repeated. I'm going to have a talk with that boy.
Don't you dare. He's perfect. They sat on the porch, hands intertwined, listening to the sounds of a boy settling into sleep, and a house settling into silence, and a life settling into something that felt, for the first time in longer than either of them could remember, like it might actually work. The night was hot. The air was still. Somewhere far off, thunder rolled, the first promise of rain in weeks. Clara squeezed his hand.
It's going to rain.
Maybe.
No, it's going to rain. I can feel it.
And she could. The way a woman who'd survived drought and fire and locked doors could feel the change before it came. Not in her bones, but in her blood. In the part of her that had learned to read the world for signs of hope, because hope was the only currency she'd had left. Ethan squeezed back. Then let it come. The rain came that night, not gentle, not gradual. It hit the prairie like a fist, sudden, violent, and relentless. The kind of rain Kansas hadn't seen in months, the kind that turned cracked earth to mud in minutes, and filled dry creek beds before dawn. Clara stood on the porch with her arms open. Ethan watched from the doorway. You're going to catch your death.
I don't care. Clara, Ethan, it's rain. Do you understand? It's rain.
He understood. Not just the water, the breaking, the release. The sky doing what she'd been trying to do for weeks. Letting go of everything it had been holding. Samuel pushed past his father and ran straight into the downpour, barefoot, laughing, spinning in circles with his mouth open. Samuel, get back here.
Papa, it's raining.
I can see that.
Then come out.
Ethan looked at Clara. She was soaked, hair plastered to her face, bandages on her feet turning brown with mud. And she was smiling. Not the careful, broken smile she'd been managing since she arrived. A real one, wide and reckless and young.
Come on, she said.
He stepped off the porch. The rain hit him like a wall, warm, heavy, alive. Samuel grabbed his hand. Clara grabbed the other. And the three of them stood in the downpour like fools, like children, like people who'd forgotten what it felt like to be happy, and were remembering all at once. Ethan pulled Clara close. She didn't resist. Her forehead pressed against his chest, and he felt her shoulders shaking. Not from cold, not from crying, from laughing.
We look ridiculous, she said.
We look alive.
Same thing.
Samuel wedged himself between them again, his favorite position, arms around both their waists.
This is the best night ever, he announced.
And it was. The rain lasted 3 days. When it stopped, the prairie looked different. Green pushing through brown. Wildflowers opening in cracks that had been dry for months. The creek behind the ranch ran clear for the first time since spring. Clara started her lessons the following Monday. 4 children showed up the first day. The Dawson twins, girls, 8 years old, identical in every way except that one talked nonstop and the other barely spoke at all. The Keller boy, 10, who'd never held a pencil. And the girl from the Hart Ranch, 6, same age as Samuel, who arrived clutching a rag doll and wouldn't let go of it through the entire lesson. Clara sat them on the porch, gave each one a slate Ethan had made from flat stones and chalk he'd ridden to town to buy. First thing, she said, write your name.
I don't know how,
the Keller boy said. That's why you're here. I'll teach you. By the end of today, every one of you will write your own name, and nobody in this world can take that from you. Samuel sat at the end of the row. He already knew his letters. Clara had taught him 2 years ago, before everything fell apart. But he sat there anyway, working on his slate, glancing at Clara every few minutes like he was making sure she was still real. Ethan watched from the barn. He'd positioned himself there deliberately, close enough to hear, far enough to let her have her space. This was hers, not his. By the end of the first hour, 4 children could write their names. The Keller boy held up his slate. Is that right? Clara looked, nodded.
That's right, Jacob. That's your name.
The boy stared at the letters like he'd discovered fire.
That's me? That's you, forever, on paper, in ink, in stone if you want. Nobody can tell you it ain't.
The boy's chin trembled. He wiped his nose on his sleeve and went back to practicing, tracing the letters over and over, harder each time, like he was carving himself into the world. Clara's throat tightened. She turned away so the children wouldn't see. Ethan saw. He always saw. Word spread, the way word does in small places, through kitchen tables and fence lines and women hanging laundry, who leaned over to the next ranch and said, "You hear what Clara's doing?" The second week, 8 children came. The third week, 12. By the fourth week, Clara had run out of slates, and Ethan had to build a second table for the porch. "We need more chalk," Clara said over supper. "I'll ride to town tomorrow. And more paper. The older ones are ready for ink." "I'll get paper. And a proper chalkboard, a real one, not the stones." "Clara, I ain't made of money." "I know, but I can trade for it. Martha Dawson said she'd give us her old parlor board in exchange for extra lessons for the twins on Saturdays." "You're already teaching 5 days a week." "I know." "You ain't slept a full night since you got here." "I know that too." "You're pushing yourself too hard." She set down her fork, looked at him. "Ethan, for 2 years I sat in a room and did nothing. Nothing. I stared at walls. I counted floorboards. I talked to myself because, There was nobody else. Don't tell me I'm pushing too hard. I'm pushing exactly as hard as I need to. He held up his hands. I'll get the chalkboard. Thank you. And the paper. Thank you. And I'll build a third table because, at this rate, you'll have every child in the county on our porch by Christmas. That's the plan. He shook his head, but he was smiling. The kind of smile that starts slow and goes deep. The kind he'd forgotten he was capable of. Samuel looked between them. Can I be her assistant? You can be whatever you want, son. I want to be the one who rings the bell, like a real school. We don't have a bell. Then I want a bell. Clara reached across the table and ruffled his hair. I'll find you a bell. A big one? The biggest one in Kansas. Samuel grinned so wide his face could barely hold it. The 5th week brought a visitor Clara wasn't expecting. She was mid-lesson, standing at the makeshift chalkboard, 12 children arranged in 2 rows on the porch, when a horse appeared on the trail. Single rider, moving slow. Ethan straightened from the fence he was mending. His hand went to his belt. Clara's breath caught. It's okay, Ethan called. I see him. The rider drew closer. A woman, not a man. Mid-40s, dark hair under a plain bonnet, riding a mule instead of a horse. Clara's knees buckled. Ruth! The servant. The woman from the Whitmore house. The one who'd unlocked the back door. Ruth dismounted, stood at the edge of the yard, hands clasped in front of her, like she wasn't sure she was welcome. Miss Clara? Clara was off the porch before Ethan could move. She crossed the yard, grabbed Ruth's hands, and held them. How did you find me? Wasn't hard. Whole territory's talking about the woman who walked 12 miles in a wedding dress. Ruth's eyes were wet. I had to see for myself. Had to know you made it. I made it because of you. That door, I know what that door meant. Ruth, if they found out, they did. Clara went still. Henry dismissed me the morning after you left. No reference. No pay for the last 3 months. Told the other servants I stole silverware so nobody would hire me. Oh, Ruth. Don't you dare apologize. Don't you dare. I'd unlock that door 1,000 times. Every time. Clara pulled the woman into her arms. Ethan watched, said nothing. But he walked to the barn, saddled a horse, and rode to Dawson's place. When he came back 2 hours later, he found Clara and Ruth on the porch, surrounded by children. Ruth helping the little Hart girl form her letters, while Clara worked with the older ones. Dawson says he's got a spare cottage on his back 40, Ethan said. Ain't much, but it's dry and it's empty. Ruth's welcome to it for as long as she needs. Ruth looked up, startled. Sir, I couldn't. You unlocked a door that gave me back the woman I love. You can have the cottage. Ruth's composure broke. She pressed her hand to her mouth, turned away, and took a moment. When she turned back, her eyes were fierce. Then I'll earn my keep. I can cook, I can clean, and I can teach these children numbers better than anyone west of St. Louis. Clara looked at Ethan. Ethan looked at Clara. Reckon we've got ourselves a school, he said. Reckon we do, Clara said. By the 6th week, Clara's reading school had become the talk of Buckhorn. Ranchers who'd never valued book learning were showing up at Ethan's fence, hats in hand, asking if their children could attend. Women rode in from neighboring counties. Sarah Dawson organized a collection: slates, chalk, old primers, a Bible for reading practice, and a bell. A real bell. Brass, heavy, polished until it gleamed. Samuel rang it every morning at 8 sharp, standing on the porch rail, swinging it like his life depended on it. School's open, he'd yell, and the children would come running from wagons and horses and on foot, streaming toward the porch like it was the center of the world. Because for them, it was. Clara stood at that chalkboard every morning, with chalk dust on her fingers and fire in her voice. And she taught those children the same way she'd survived, with words. Words as weapons. Words as shelter. Words as proof that they existed and mattered, and nobody could erase them. Write it down, she'd say. Whatever you feel, whatever you think, whatever they tell you that you can't do, write it down. Because words on paper are permanent. And people who can write their own story can't be written out of someone else's. The quiet Dawson twin, the one who never spoke, wrote her first sentence on a Thursday afternoon. Clara read it aloud.
My name is Lily, and I am not invisible. The porch went silent. Clara knelt beside the girl. No, you're not. Lily smiled. First time anyone at the school had seen it. Clara looked up, caught Ethan's eye across the yard. He was standing by the barn, holding a fence post he'd forgotten to plant, and his eyes were bright. He mouthed 2 words. Proud of you. She mouthed back, build me another table. He laughed, out loud, in the middle of the yard, holding a fence post, laughing like a man who'd just discovered the sound of his own joy. Samuel heard it and stopped ringing the bell. Papa's laughing, he told the other children, like it was a historic event. That almost never happens. The 7th week, Ethan did something he'd been planning since the night Clara told him about the letters. He rode to town alone, spent the afternoon at the general store, then at the carpenter's, then at the post office. Came home after dark. Clara was asleep on the porch. She'd fallen asleep grading slates, a stack of them in her lap, chalk dust in her hair. He set his packages inside, covered her with a blanket, sat beside her until she stirred. What time is it? She mumbled. Late. Where'd you go? Town. For what? Come inside. She followed him, rubbing her eyes, still half asleep. On the kitchen table he'd laid out everything. New paper, thick, cream-colored, the good kind. 3 bottles of ink. A set of pens with proper nibs. A leather journal, soft-bound, with her initials pressed into the cover. C.W. She touched the initials. Clara Whitmore? Clara, whatever she wants. The W is up to you. Her hand trembled on the leather. And this, he said. He pulled out a small wooden box, opened it. Inside, on a piece of cotton, sat a ring. Not oak this time, not carved from scraps. Silver, simple. A single band with a thin line engraved around the center. I bought it from old Mr. Pruitt. He does metalwork when his hands ain't shaking. Said he'd been holding it for someone who deserved it. Clara stared at the ring, then at Ethan. Are you asking me? I'm asking you. Ethan, it's been 7 weeks. It's been 2 years, 7 weeks, and about 100 sleepless nights. I ain't asking because it's the right time. I'm asking because I've run out of reasons to wait. I've loved you since the day you taught my son to read. I've missed you every day since you disappeared. And I've watched you come back from something that would have destroyed most people. And instead of breaking, you built a school on my porch. He took the ring from the box. I ain't got much. You know that. This ranch barely makes enough to feed us. I can't give you what Whitmore offered. I can't give you a big house or servants or a name that opens doors. Ethan, but I can give you a door that never locks. I can give you paper and ink and a porch full of children who need what you've got. And I can give you a man who will never, not once, not ever, try to own you. Clara's tears fell onto the table, onto the paper, onto the leather journal with her initials. You don't have to answer now, he said. I told you, I ain't rushing. Yes.
He stopped. What?
Yes, Ethan. Yes.
You don't want to think about it?
I've been thinking about it for 2 years in a locked room. The answer was always yes. It was yes when I wrote the first letter. It was yes when I wrote the 17th. It was yes when I jumped off that wagon and walked 12 miles barefoot. The answer has always been yes.
He slid the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. Like Pruitt had known. Like the metal itself had been waiting. Clara held up her hand, looked at the ring in the lamplight.
It's beautiful.
It's simple.
That's why it's beautiful.
She kissed him. First time since she'd come back. Soft, careful. Like two people remembering how to be gentle with each other after a long time of being handled rough by the world. Samuel's voice from the hallway. I knew it! They broke apart. The boy stood in his nightshirt, hair sticking up in every direction, grinning like he'd won a prize. I knew it! I called it! I told the Dawson twins last week that Papa was going to ask, and they didn't believe me. Samuel, go to bed. Can I see the ring? Clara held out her hand. Samuel examined it with the seriousness of a jeweler. It's real nice, Papa. Thank you. Can I be the one who tells everybody? Tell them what? That I'm getting a mama. Clara's breath caught. She knelt down, eye level. Is that okay with you? Really okay? Samuel's face went serious, the way only a 6-year-old's face can. All honesty, no filter. My first mama's in heaven. She can't come back. I know that because Papa told me, and Papa don't lie. But she'd want me to have someone who makes honey bread, and teaches me letters, and makes Papa laugh. And that's you. Clara pulled him into her arms, held him so tight the boy squeaked. You're squishing me. I know. Are you crying again? Yes. You cry a lot, Miss Clara. I know. Can I ring the bell tomorrow and tell everyone? You can ring the bell. The big one? The big one. Samuel whooped, kissed her cheek, kissed his father's cheek, and ran back to bed with his arms in the air. Ethan shook his head. That boy. Our boy. He looked at her. The word our landed somewhere deep, in a place that had been empty so long he'd forgotten it was there. Our boy, he repeated. Clara picked up the journal from the table, opened it to the first blank page, picked up one of the new pens, dipped it in ink. What are you writing? Ethan asked. The first letter I've written is a free woman. To who? To Ruth. Telling her she's invited to the wedding. We just got engaged 5 minutes ago. And I've been waiting 2 years. I'm not wasting another minute, she wrote. Quick, steady, no trembling this time. The pen moved across the paper with the certainty of a woman who'd found her voice and wasn't ever going to lose it again. Ethan watched her write, and something in his chest settled. Not like peace. Peace was too gentle a word. Like completion. Like the last beam of a house going into place. Like the sound a door makes when it closes softly, by choice, because the person inside feels safe enough to rest. The wedding was 3 weeks later. Simple, on the porch. Dawson officiated because nobody could find the preacher and nobody wanted to wait. Sarah Dawson brought wildflowers. Martha Keller baked a cake. Every child from Clara's school sat in the front row, slates in their laps, because Clara had given them an assignment. Write 1 sentence about what love means. Samuel stood beside his father, wearing the brown boots he'd been promised, holding the ring on a piece of string because they didn't have a pillow. Clara wore a blue dress Sarah had sewn for her, not white. She'd told Ethan she was done with white dresses for the rest of her life, and he'd said that was fine by him. The vows were short. I will never lock a door, Clara said. I will never stop answering, Ethan said. Samuel handed over the ring. Clara slipped it on beside the silver band. I now pronounce you man and wife, Dawson said, and if anybody from Copper Ridge has a problem with it, they can take it up with me. Laughter. Applause. Samuel rang the bell so hard it could be heard 3 ranches over. After the cake, after the dancing, after Samuel fell asleep in Ruth's arms and the neighbors rode home in the dark. Clara sat at the kitchen table. She opened the leather journal, turned past the first page, the letter to Ruth. Past the second, a lesson plan for Monday. To the third page, blank. She picked up the pen. At the top of the page, in careful letters, she wrote, Clara Caldwell. Not because anyone told her to, not because a paper demanded it, not because a debt required it, because she chose it. She closed the journal, set down the pen, walked to the porch where Ethan sat, boots off, hat tipped back, looking at the stars. She sat beside him. It's done, she said. What's done? Everything. The running, the hiding, the locked doors, the silence. It's done. He took her hand. You know what I was thinking? What? That porch needs a second swing. She leaned against him. What for? For sitting, side by side, watching Samuel grow up, watching those kids learn to read, watching the rain come and go. That sounds like a life. That's exactly what it is. She closed her eyes. Somewhere in the house, Samuel murmured in his sleep. Something about bells and brown boots and honey bread. Somewhere on the prairie, a coyote called and another answered. Somewhere in Copper Ridge, a room with a boarded window sat empty, and nobody would ever be locked inside it again. And on a small ranch on the Buckhorn Trail, where the dust had finally settled and the rain had finally come, a woman who'd walked through fire to get home sat beside the man who'd waited without knowing he was waiting. And they held on to each other the way only people who'd lost everything could. Not with desperation, not with fear, but with the quiet, unshakable certainty that they'd earned this. Every single mile of it. Clara Caldwell didn't write her name because someone told her to. She wrote it because she chose to. And that made all the difference.